Our oven is preheating to 525 degrees. We're going to have it preheat for a minimum of 1 hour. And let's get our other ingredients together for the pizza. First, our cheeses. We're going to use 2 different types. We're going to use regular whole milk mozzarella, low moisture, and of course, fresh mozzarella as well, in combination, in tandem. There's going to be more of this mozzarella than the fresh. The fresh is going to be dotted in there. Along with that, we're going to use some pork belly. We're going to need to slice this up and then crisp it. All right, I've purchased it already cooked. We'll be using some arugula to finish off the pizza, as well as some chives and a Calabrian chili that I have growing in my own garden, and of course some blackberries. Now, we are going to make some semblance of a compote with these blackberries, but it's not going to be broken down like a compote would. We're going to add a little bit of sugar. We're going to go on the fire with these, and I'll show you exactly what we're going to do in just a moment. But these are our accoutrements, or our mise en place, and that we need to get these ready while the dough comes to room temperature, because I pulled it out of the refrigerator, and our oven heats up to 525 and gets that stone really, really hot. So I'll be back and I'll show you how to deal with these ingredients. Okay, here we are with our pork belly. It's been refrigerated, so that's why you see the fat here, and the protein is gelatinized and hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into manageable pieces. Remember, we're eating a pizza here. We don't want these long strands of anything. We want them to be manageable, so they've got to be bite-sized. So we're going to cut them into pieces like this, and then cut down the center. So when they do cook or crisp up, they'll be nice, manageable pieces. In fact, we could even make them a little bit smaller, but that's about good. So let me do that, and we'll come back. All right, as you can see, I have diced up the pork belly into reasonably large, medium-sized pieces here. And now we'll take this and go onto the stove and crisp it up. All right, here I have our non-stick skillet. I've washed it out. There's still a little bit of water in there, but that's okay. That'll actually help us out. And I'm going to put our pork belly pieces in the skillet, and we will slowly bring these up to temperature, and they will crisp up, and these will be our topping, or one of our toppings for the pizza. All right, I'll come back when these begin to sizzle away. All right, as you can see, our pork belly has come to temperature, and the fat is melted, and any sort of residual water or whatever that was in there is going to evaporate away. And when that does, then the fat will brown or crisp our pork belly. And then we'll remove it and place it on a towel-lined plate to drain a little bit. All right? I'll be back when we're closer to that point. All right, as you can see, the pork is now sizzling away. And I don't know if you can tell, but you can see that, like for example, that piece right there is slowly crisping up and browning up. All right? I've got the flame about as high as it can go. So you may want to lower the flame and do this very, very slowly. I'm kind of used to cooking quickly from being in the industry. Now, that's not to say that some things aren't really better off cooking very, very slowly. But what I want to do here is brown the outside and keep the inside soft, okay? And so that's the reason for this. It's essentially what it's doing here. It's deep frying in its own fat, as you can see. In fact, we can turn it this way and really submerge it in the pork fat itself, and it will really, it'll be like deep frying the pork. So just a few more minutes until this crisps up, and we'll take it off the flame and start in with our blackberries. All right, as you can see, They've crisped up, and now it's time to take them off the flame and to put them on a piece of paper lined with some paper towels. To put them on a plate, pardon me, lined with paper towels. I'll do that and we'll come back. All right, now let's get to our blackberries. First of all, I've washed these. I mean, look how nice that is. In fact, damn, that's good. We're going to take our chili, and I'm only going to use about half of the chili. We'll slice this up. Nice rounds like this. And again, I'm only going to use about half of it, and I'm going to retain the other half to use as a finishing sort of a chili in the event that when I taste this, I can say that we could handle a little bit more heat. So we'll take about half of this, put it in there with the blackberries, and now all we need now is a little bit of water and sugar, and we're going to go back into the same pan that we crisped our bacon in. I didn't even clean it out. It's going to help us. It's going to be okay. So you can feel free that you don't have to use a bunch of different pots and pans for this sort of a thing. So let's go back to the stove. Okay, we're back on the stove. And I have our blackberries and our Calabrian chili in there. And we are going to add a little bit of sugar. And a little bit of water to this. Not too much water, just a little bit. A bit of water there. Just enough to be able to break down our blackberries. And so what will end up happening is when this comes to temperature, the blackberries will begin to break down a little bit, and then the sugar and the water will combine to form a syrup, and the blackberries will go into this syrup and create sort of a compote while still remaining whole. And so this will take 2 or 3 minutes, then we'll turn our heat down and let it reduce to a nice syrupy consistency, and I'll be back when we're at that point. All right, as you can see, as these blackberries cook, they actually change color. They don't look black anymore. A lot of them look a lot more like raspberries. Well, a red raspberry color than blackberry. But you notice that the water is leaching. I mean, the pigment from the blackberries is leaching into the water, just as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Now, as the water evaporates and these slowly break down, this water will become far more viscous and thick, and the chilies will add a little bit of hotness to the berries, and the sugar will add sweetness. So you have a hot and sweet sort of a thing going on here, which typically, like for example in East Asia, they don't like hot and sweet, they like hot and sour. But America loves hot and sweet, and I'm no exception. So here's this a quintessential California preparation for a pizza using blackberries and chilies and a little bit of sugar. How sweet it is. And then we're going to add that arugula in there and those chives to bring some green. And we have the white from the cheese and the pork belly. This is going to be outrageous. All right, I'll come back when this is reduced down. You can sort of start to see how it's becoming a little bit viscous. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, once the water starts to evaporate and this gets a little bit more viscous, you can see that I've turned down the flame so it's not boiling away. What we want to do is we want to make the water evaporate and create that syrup, like I said, while still maintaining the integrity of the blackberries. As you can see, that has come to pass. So we have a nice viscous sort of a syrup here, but our blackberries are still relatively in good shape and unscathed. So we'll take them out and reserve them for service. I'll be back. So now, what I like to do is I like to take a sheet pan or a sheet tray, and I put flour on it, and then I turn out the dough into the sheet pan like this. Our dough is a very, very wet dough, and for that reason, that's why I've put it in the flour. Now look how soft and pliable and malleable it is. What we're going to do is press out the center like this, and because I've let it rest for so long and it's gotten so soft, there's very little to do with regard to stretching. We don't have to use that Neapolitan method. We don't have to use this method where you stretch it out on your knuckles or anything like that. It literally stretches itself into the proper size. Okay? And you can see how it's so easy to keep it also in a circle. Now I'm going to remove it from here so that we can get a lot of the flour off and put it on our cutting board, or our bench, as they would call it. And we'll straighten it out. And this will help knock the excess flour off of it as well. You can see the edges here that, let me move it in so you can see that I press up against the edges and it's already beginning to spring back. So that's a good sign. It's beautiful. Look at this. Now it's time to put it in the oven. I'm going to pull out the stone, not the rack that the stone is on, and then I'm just going to lay this on the stone. Unfortunately, because of the way the camera is, I can't show you that, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll be back, and we're going to blind bake this crust. Because I don't have an oven that goes up to 600 or 1,000 degrees, what I tend to do is we'll cook the crust first, halfway, and then we'll put our toppings on, our cheese in this case, and then let it brown in the oven for a second wave of cooking. I'll be back. All right, as you can see, our pizza is baking away. Let me just cut this real quick so that it doesn't solidify or actually get crispy there. It'd be difficult to deal with it a little bit later on. In fact, I'm going to press this down a little bit too. Very, very good. And so now we leave it in there for a few minutes until it forms itself. It gels a little bit, the starches gel, and then we'll remove it and then top it and then place it back in the oven. Okay, our pizza is ready to come out. Look at that. It's still brown on the bottom. It's browning on the bottom. It's not fully brown on the bottom yet, but the top is gelled a little bit, and that's going to be perfect for our purposes. All right? Now we're going to top the pizza with our cheeses, and we're going to place it back in the oven to finish browning and letting the cheese melt. Now, with regard to cheese and toppings on these types of pizzas, less is always more. In America, we tend to put too many toppings on our pizza, and when we go to Europe, we say to ourselves, how come there's nothing on the pizza? They're very, very stingy over there, and so I'm going to be a little bit less stingy today, but just remember, when it comes to this sort of a thing, less is always more. A little bit of that fresh mozzarella. There we go. And then this will now go back in the oven at the top, not on the stone, until it's browned all the way around and our cheese is melted. And I'll bring it back out, and then we'll finish topping it. We'll finish it off, essentially, what is called the finish line, after it is brown. All right, it's time for our pizza to come out. And look at that. I mean, how sweet it is. Now we're going to wait a couple of minutes before we finalize the toppings, except for our pork belly. We are going to put a little bit of this pork belly onto the pizza. And what will end up happening is, I haven't refrigerated it. I've just cooked it, so this is all at the same time. The residual heat from the pizza will heat up the pork belly just to the point of where it's going to be perfect. So too hot is no good, and of course ice cold out of the refrigerator is no good either. So let me get a couple of more pieces on there. Remember, less is more with this type of pizza. And you'll notice that I have it on a wire rack, and that's to ensure that when we're resting the pizza, that the condensation doesn't happen underneath the pizza and make it soggy. This will keep it crispy underneath. All right, I'll be back in about 1 minute, and we'll put this on a pizza pan, cut it up, and then finish with our chives, arugula, and blackberries. All right, our pizza is well rested. I'm going to transfer it onto a pizza pan, just like that. We'll give it our requisite cuts. I'm going to cut this one into 8 pieces as opposed to 6, because it's slightly larger than a typical pizza, like a typical Neapolitan or California pizza. It's a little bit bigger than that. So now that's that. And now we'll add our blackberries. I'm going to add 1 to every slice, just like this. Try to find ones that are still nicely intact. And you can see the gentle cooking that we did ensured that we would have these beautifully preserved blackberries. Look at that, the integrity of them is still there. How sweet it is. Now let's take a little bit of this juice and we'll just drizzle it on here. Not too much, just a little bit. There we go. And then we'll take some arugula and put that on there. I'm going to break this up a little bit. And I tasted the blackberries. They do have somewhat of a kick to them, so we are not going to add any more red chili, because even I think it's a little bit too much of a kick for this. But we will add our chives. Look at that. And there we go. Landon has inspired me to make a pizza. I've gone the California route, and we've done something a little bit out of the ordinary, and I hope that you enjoy it. In fact, before we even go, I'm going to grate some Parmigiano Reggiano on top. Voila. Well, you saw me put it together. And here's a slice from our pizza. This is quintessential California cuisine. All the flavors are there. The dough is well made. It has flavor. It's chewy. It's done right, not overdone, not underdone. The pork is soft and tender and flavorful. I didn't add any salt, as you can see, because the pork brings the salt along with it a little bit. It's a little bit crunchy. The blackberries are perfect. They're not too sweet. They're not too tart. They're not too hot. the chives, the arugula, the cheeses, they all work together perfectly. This is what California cuisine is all about. The rules are there are no rules. And there's no rules for you either. You can make this with blueberries. You can make it with the raspberries. You can make it with any type of berries that you want, any type of sweet fruit. You can do it with peaches, with nectarines, with cherries, all right? Any kind of fruit goes well with pork, especially pork belly. So the fat from that, it is absolutely out of this world, and you have to try it, all right? I'm gonna finish the rest of this entire pizza to my detriment. I'm gonna be sorry for that in about a half an hour. But before I go, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, hit the bell button so you know when I release another video. Tell your friends. Sharing is caring. And leave a comment down below. Thank you very much for watching my channel and sharing this journey with me. It's truly our channel. It is a symbiotic relationship between me and you. If you're not there, I can't be here. Wherever you're in the world, I hope you're having a great day. I wish you nothing but good health, happiness, and prosperity. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next video.